Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 5. Narad Muni cursed by Prajapati Daksha. There are two verses given together, 27 and 28. I shall read 27 by myself and we'll all chant together 28th verse. So please hear the 27th verse. Abhaksha katichin masan katichid vayubho janaha aradhayan mantramimam abhyasyanta idaspatim. Now the 28th verse, kindly repeat after me. Om Namo Narayanaya Purushaya Mahatmane Vishuddha Sattvadhishnaya Mahahamsaya Dhimahi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. For a few months, the sons of Prajapati Daksha drank only water and ate only air. Thus, undergoing great austerities, they recited this mantra. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always situated in His transcendental abode. Since He is a Supreme Person, Paramahamsa, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. From these verses, it is apparent that the chanting of the Maha Mantra or the Vedic mantras must be accompanied by severe austerities. In Kali-yuga, people cannot undergo severe austerities like those mentioned herein, drinking only water and eating only air for many months. One cannot imitate such a process. But at least one must undergo some austerity by giving up 4 unwanted principles, namely illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Anyone can easily practice this tapasya, and then the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra will be effective without delay. One should not give up the process of austerity. If possible, one should bathe in the waters of the Ganges or Yamuna, or in the absence of Ganges and Yamuna, one may bathe in the water of the sea. This is an item of austerity. Our Krishna consciousness movement has therefore established 2 very large centers, one in Vrindavan and another in Mayapur, Navadvip. There, one may bathe in the Ganges or Yamuna, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and thus become perfect and return home back to Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So here is a description of the austerities that the sons of Daksha underwent after going to the holy place. They undertook great austerities like drinking only water for some months, means completely giving up all solid food, and after that not even water, only taking air. And they also recited this mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya. Let us offer a respectful obeisance unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always situated in His transcendental abode. Since He is the Supreme Person, Paramahamsa, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Him. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the chanting of the Mahamantra or Vedic mantras must be accompanied by severe austerities. So mantra chanting will be ultimately effective in God realization, in perfecting our spiritual life, only if it is accompanied by austerities. As is often mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in several places, here also he says, in Kali-yuga people cannot undergo severe austerities like those mentioned herein. So don't try to imitate such a process. Sometimes when we read, we get some sudden inspiration. Let me also undertake severe austerities. So here the warning is given, don't imitate such a process. But that does not mean that we don't undergo any austerity. One must at least undergo some austerity. Some austerity is required, because without austerity, the chanting is not effective for achieving the perfection. Chanting works regardless of whether somebody chants with austerity or without austerity. But for chanting to be effective, to be able to give us the perfection that we desire, we should undertake some austerity. And the recommended austerity is give up the 4 unwanted principles. Give up illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating and gambling. And Srila Prabhupada further says, anyone can easily practice this tapasya. Now let us understand what is this word tapasya, austerity means. Tapasya means one has to accept voluntarily some inconvenience for the body or mind, specifically for spiritual advancement. This is the exact definition given by Srila Prabhupada about what is austerity. The scriptures also instruct us that tapasya has to be practiced under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So in the Bhagavatam itself, we have 2 examples of 2 different personalities who practiced severe austerities, Dhruva and Hiranyakashipu. Both of them practiced severe austerities, but Dhruva was doing it under the guidance of Srila Narad Muni. And Hiranyakashipu concocted his own method or practice of austerity. So the results are totally opposite. In spite of Hiranyakashipu being very determined to do that austerity, practice that austerity and get the boons he desired, ultimately he was completely vanquished when he could not even subdue or control his 5-year-old son, Prahlad. Whereas Dhruva, in a very short time, in just 6 months, he was able to see the Supreme Lord face to face. And even though in the beginning, he had this desire, a material desire, to get a very big kingdom. But as soon as he saw the Supreme Lord, he became purified to the extent that he completely gave up all his desires. Specifically, he did not desire anything, because Supreme Lord asked him, "What is it that you want?" Swamin kritarthosmi varam na yache. So this is the difference between performing austerity under guidance and performing austerity which is concocted or imitation of somebody else's austerity. We also have examples of our own spiritual master Srila Prabhupada and his guru Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. So I'll just read a small portion of this austerities, one of the austerities undertaken by Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur and by Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was raised as the son of a pure devotee, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And right from childhood itself, he was very, very interested and attracted to devotional service. And he had the excellent care and guidance of his own father, who was a pure devotee. But still, when he began preaching or wanted to begin preaching on the order of his spiritual master, then he underwent severe austerities for starting this preaching movement. Because already so many people were preaching, but none of them were strictly following most of them were not strictly following the actual instructions of a bona fide acharya. So many deviants were there. So, I'm reading this from the biography. In 1905, at the age of 31, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was 31 years old, he began his great vow following the example of Namacharya Haridas Thakur of chanting 3 lakh names. Bracket, it is written 192 rounds per day. So certainly this is a very big austerity. We struggle to sometimes complete 16 rounds in a day. But he has undertaken 192 rounds per day. He determined that at the rate of these many rounds, that is about 3 lakh names daily, it would take about 9 years to complete 1 billion names. Shatakoti Nama Japa. This is what is the tapasya he had made a sankalpa to do. He resided in a grass hut at the Yoga Pita for 4 years, and in February of 1909, later, 4 years later, he built a cottage near the Yoga Pita at Prajapattana, on the site of the house of Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya, the uncle of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these are all very, very sacred spots in the holy land of Navadvip. So, this place is considered to be non-different from the banks of Radha Kunda. There he remained uninterruptedly executing his chanting. He strictly followed his vow and observed Chaturmasya. And what was the vrata of Chaturmasya? Cooking rice which had been dried in the sun in ghee and eating it from the floor in the manner of a cow. It's not that he is trying to just live on air and water. He is taking food, but what is recommended? He would take rest lying on the ground, never using any pillows and constantly chanting and studying the scriptures. Seeing his renunciation, his Gurudev, Srila Gaur Kishodas Babaji Maharaj said, I observe that the renunciation of Sri Rupa Raghunatha is manifest in my Prabhu. His own Guru used to address the disciple as my Prabhu. This was Gaur Kishodas Babaji Maharaj's humility. So, our spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he says in this connection, from childhood, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj was a strict brahmachari. And he underwent severe, very severe penances for starting this movement, worldwide movement. That was his mission. So one of the many austerities he undertook is this daily chanting, this 3 lakh names of the Supreme Lord, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. When the roof of his kutir became broken, rather than taking time away from his chanting for repairing it, he simply sat with an umbrella when it rained and went on chanting. Sometimes he had to go to different places when it became even difficult to hold the umbrella and sit and chant. But he continued very strictly and completed his vows always. Never missed his vow. So, from this we can learn the austerity he undertook is the austerity for chanting Hare Krishna. Now, following in the footsteps of the Acharya, we should also understand that we should not try to imitate the austerities that devotees or tapasvis in the previous ages used to do. No. We should also undertake the tapasya of chanting Hare Krishna. But again, don't try to imitate Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur or Namacharya Haridas Thakur. But rather, the 16 rounds that we have been instructed to chant, we should undertake that chanting as a tapasya. So the tapasya is already mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. As he says in this purport, your chanting will be effective if you avoid the 4 sinful activities. So, we have to chant while strictly following no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex. In addition to that, we have to avoid the 10 offenses against the holy name, of which one of the offenses is to be inattentive while chanting. Now, to actually avoid this offense, probably it is the greatest challenge when we begin chanting Hare Krishna. So, we have to take this tapasya. How can I actually fix my mind completely on the holy name? So, whatever required to be done for fixing my mind, I have to do. This is a tapasya we have to undertake. And this is no small tapasya. Please don't think that this is something very, very simple. Of course, it is simple in one sense, but it is also difficult given that before coming to Krishna consciousness, probably we never attempted to even control our mind or fix our mind on one particular activity continuously for 2 hours. Probably we never attempted that. Or even if we attempted, it should have been with some fruitive intention. Like exam time, typically students will sit very, very focused and try to study for the sake of doing well in the examination. But very, 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 we are taught to be fruitive, unfortunately. Because our parents or our elders don't know, most cases, what should be the goal of studying or undertaking tapasya, undergoing some austerities. So we only would have done it with some fruitive intention. Just like Hiranyakashipu, he underwent severe tapasya, but he was totally fruitive. Totally fruitive. So that is not devotional service. Actually, that's not pure devotional service. Undertaking some tapasya with some fruitive intention is not pure devotional service. Similarly, we are taught we have to chant not with any material desire. Like so many people who are not in this line of pure devotional service, they do chanting. They may chant Hare Krishna mantra or they may chant Om. But they do it with some fruitive intention, material intention. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaya. No material benefits we should desire, nor even liberation from material existence, not even that. So now we may not understand what is the significance of this instruction, don't even desire liberation, because right now we are more or less trying to become fixed up in our basic practice of Krishna consciousness. So we don't know what is material bondage. What is the difference between material bondage and liberation from material bondage? We do not know. But as we advance, that freedom from material bondage will become a very, 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 very attractive thing. It will become very attractive. So at that stage, to not even desire liberation, that means I don't want any material miseries. I don't want any material distractions. See the contrast. Now Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has undertaken this tapasya of chanting Hare Krishna continuously for so many hours, practically 22 out of 24 hours in a day. And then there are some impediments, but first time after 4 years, some difficulties were there in the spot where he was, okay, let me build one kutir and sit in the kutir and chant. There will be not so much. But even that kutir, a simple cottage, so it started leaking after some number of years. Then, instead of spending time repairing it, just hold one umbrella and sit when it rains. That also is not working. Go somewhere else and chant. Don't bother. So the focus is on chanting, and to do it, whatever required, anything that is required, I will do. Somehow I'll do it. Not that I'm trying to do some devotional service. Krishna, why I have to face so many obstacles? Kindly remove the obstacle. Krishna is also waiting to satisfy or please his devotee. And devotee does not want to bother Krishna with any particular request. If at all the devotee prays to Krishna in the pure devotional line, please engage me in your service. And if I am engaged in his service, I have no further demands. That's all. I'll just do his service. Without putting any conditions. So this is the lesson. Unconditionally, we have to execute devotional service. Unconditionally. So in the beginning it may be difficult. But as we grow older, we have to learn this. How can I actually do devotional service unconditionally? Now, this should not be mistaken to be like, I don't organize myself to do things efficiently for Krishna's service. This is a mistake sometimes devotees make, and I have done this many times. That why should I organize some nice facilities for doing some preaching? Whatever is there, let me use that for preaching. Whatever I can do, let me do it. No. That's why we have to be guided. We have to be guided by the spiritual master or his representative, the senior devotees. We have to be guided. So, some minimum amount of organizing, making some arrangements, so that we don't waste time with small things. It's just like Prabhupada is asked, why do you travel in a car, or why do you take a flight? Because in the past there have been, in immediate past, there have been saintly persons, at least in this country, would simply walk. Even long distances they would walk. Of course, we have example of our acharyas. During the days when there was no proper conveyance like this, like what we have today, they would walk. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walked throughout the country and preached. Ramanujarya walked. Shankaracharya walked. Madhvacharya walked. But Prabhupada did not walk. You take the train, you take the flight when available, when he could get. So that minimum amount of arrangements or facilities required for preaching, we should accept. Now, where to draw the line will be the next question. What is okay as a minimum required thing? So this you require guidance of senior devotees. Because by their experience and by studying Srila Prabhupada's books, devotees understand where to draw the line. We have to learn this. And as we practice under guidance, we are able to discern what is over-endeavor. Sometimes devotees have this doubt. If I am doing some service, what is considered as over-endeavor? In Prabhupada's own life, you can see, last point, then I'll close, that in the case of procuring that land in Bombay, where now the wonderful, beautiful Juhu Radha Rasbihari temple stands now, the beautiful temple, Prabhupada had to undergo so much difficulty. But Prabhupada would not give up. Several times devotees felt it seems like it's an over endeavor. And there were a lot of difficulties. But in Calcutta, in another instance, devotees were trying for one American house. Prabhupada wanted to establish an American house for his disciples from the West. Prabhupada thought, unless I give some nice facilities, they'll find it very difficult to even come and stay, what to speak of practice and preach Krishna consciousness in India. So Prabhupada told devotees, try to get some particular building. And they tried and tried for some number of months. I don't know the exact time period. And it was so much difficulty they were having. After about some few months, Prabhupada said, okay, forget that. Look for some other property. And later on they found another property. I think it was that present Albert Road temple, where another temple is situated. They got a nice property. See how Prabhupada, in case of Bombay, he never told his disciples, give up. In case of Calcutta, he decided, give up. So, these are things which only a devotee who is actually experienced, who has done sufficient practice of Krishna consciousness, or is a perfect devotee like Prabhupada, can actually take a call. We cannot always be sure that when we have some doubt, we can ourselves resolve it on our own. No. So we have to be guided, and as we progress in Krishna consciousness, less and less guidance will be required. As we become more experienced and more mature, less and less guidance. But if there is doubt, then certainly we must seek guidance. This is a simple thumb rule that you can use. I'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.